And you are watching, hopefully listening soon to another edition of Blue It Splits. Promise I will get the podcast back up and running. I'm just talking to Sabo about it the other day. You got to get that login and put some podcast episodes up. Obviously a lot going on right now with the Jets. I'm going to work off the chat here as much as I can, because I'm just swimming with all the stuff that is going on with the Jets, who have brought in 8 new players at this point, right? We have the Fitzpatrick trade, where they traded a 7th round pick for Minka Fitzpatrick, 3 years, $39 million or $40 million was the rumored extension for him. Now, I don't know if they've ripped up the old contract and he's working off that first year of that 3-year deal now, or if it kicks in after this year, but we still have to see the details with that. I know a lot of people hear like $13 million. Oh, he's 29 years old. What if he's bad in the third year of that? The third year is probably not guaranteed. So it's probably really closer to a 2-year deal for him. And what happens if the contract is like, 11 million, and then the last year is 17 million, so they're paying him $11 million these next 2 years. And, so I think it's a good signing or a good trade with Fitzpatrick. He's a leader in that secondary, which they really didn't have, a guy who can communicate and get guys aligned. Guys are out of position plenty. So I really, really like the Fitzpatrick signing. And transparently, I've only watched 1 game of him. I'm trying to get like at least 1 or 2 games of each guy, just to get like a general feel for them just the next few days. And then I'll really start hammering home like the reviews, but kind of I want to be a little bit more broad now with these guys, because I've only watched 1 game. But Fitzpatrick was an excellent move. Again, a communicator, a guy who intersected with Slowick, the safeties coach for the Jets now. And then the DC was also obviously the DC when Fitzpatrick was there last year with the Dolphins. So they know him. He knows the defense, great communicator, good locker room guy. He was a guy, even at Bama and early in his career, like he was always obviously pretty athletic, but he's always won with his mind. And the first game that I watched of him, you could see he's really smart, like leveraging himself over route concepts and things like that. So I really like that signing. You have Davis, the Demario Davis signing, 37 years old. They set him to a 2-year, I believe it's $22 million deal, $15 million guaranteed. So if he really, really sucks this year, you can cut him, have about $4 million in dead money, and then you'd save about $7 million with him. So it's a 1-year deal that you can, or it's a 2-year deal, but you can get off of it after 1 if Father Time really catches up with him this year, but seems like it hasn't recently. He's been super, super good the last few years, has rarely missed games. I think the last year was like the first game he missed in his entire career. So he's super, super durable player, knock on wood. With Demario Davis, again, a leader to that second level. You have a leader on the third level, which I refer to as the corners and the safeties with Fitzpatrick. You have a leader on the second level now with Demario Davis, and hopefully he can get Sherwood's head out of his ass. And obviously Sherwood or Davis is going to play as that Mike on that strong side, where Sherwood's going to play more on the weak side, but a devastating hitter. Demario Davis can take, I think he's 248 pounds, so a very big linebacker. And he's not a guy you want in coverage, but in zone coverage, from what I've seen, in my limited watching of him, again, I've watched a game. He knows where to be in zone coverage. And he doesn't cover grass. And he does a good job like matching guys and getting underneath the routes and things like that. So he might not be a good man coverage guy, but in zone, he still gets to his spot. And I actually, for 37 years old, he actually moves decently well still. So I was happy to see that. And his mind is definitely a plus. Just early on into the film, like how quickly he can get to some spots and anticipate stuff's very nice. You have Osai, the D end from the Bengals, who signed to a is it a 3? I think it's a 3-year, $36 million contract. I forget the guarantees on that one, but he's a guy who is a little bit bigger than JJ. And he could rush all up and down the line. I didn't think JJ was a great fit in this defense, just because he's a little bit too small to play D end. And on the outside, he hasn't really dropped into coverage. I think Osai has dropped into coverage a few times. I got to watch a little bit more. Again, just one game of him. He's a little bit bigger than JJ. JJ's around like 255, I believe, and Osai is around 264. So he could actually play inside a little bit. I think in like a base defense, he's going to be your strong side outside linebacker. But in a pass situation, he could reduce and play 4-eye. I saw him with some 3-tech rushes as well, sometimes over the center. So you can rush up and down your line. I think primarily he's going to be the strong side outside linebacker, but on some reps, I think they'll reduce him down as a 4-eye or a 5-tech, in pass rush situations. And just in general, with all these signings, and I'm going to go 1,000 different places here because I have no formulated list of how I'm going to talk about this. I'm just kind of going off of the top of my head right here. But they added a lot of guys in that defensive front, and they really added like to the versatility that they have with that front. Onyemata is a guy who he can play nose tackle. He's 310 pounds. He's a 33-year-old dude, 1-year deal. I believe it's either $10 million or $10.5 million. He had crossover with Saleh, with Glenn with the Saints. Which also Demario Davis, don't want to let that slip by me as either. He also had some crossover with Glenn with the Saints. So Fitzpatrick tie in with the D coordinator and the safeties coach. Davis tie-ins with Glenn with the Saints. Onyemata tie-ins with Aaron Glenn with the Saints. There's a video out there of Onyemata like really thanking Glenn for helping him, progress in his career and stuff like that after the Jets-Falcons game this year. But he's a guy who could play 0-tech, 1-tech. He's probably in base going to be like a 3-tech or 4-eye or a 5. I see him. Now, if you want to label a nose tackle and then D tackles in a 3-4 or nose tackle DNs, I don't really care so much, but he's a guy who I think in pass rush situations can play that nose tackle. I think in base, he's going to be, 3-tech from anywhere from a 3-tech to a 5. Egnegbari is another guy who they brought in. I think he's 26 years old, stock up. In recent years for him, I think he consistently gets like 20-something pressures, which is fine. He is a really good run defender and a guy who offers you at least like something, or he offers you something in terms of like his pass rush floor. So he can get some pressures, he can get some sacks, but mostly he's going to be a run stuffing type of edge guy for you. And he's another guy just like Osai who could play strong side outside linebacker. Most of the reps I've seen of him so far through one game have been like 4-eye or 5-tech. So I think he's going to be a D end and an outside linebacker for the Jets. I would say mainly D end and flex out to outside linebacker sometimes, where Osai is going to be mainly an outside linebacker and flex to D end. I don't think Egnegbari, again, I'll learn how to pronounce the name. I don't think he's not the best rusher because he's a little bit tight, not the best pass rush moves. He can play a little bit high. The hands land wide as a rusher, but he's a guy who's going to get you like effort sacks and be a good run defender. I still have to watch Belton, the safety they signed for a 1-year, $4 million deal. I think he could be worth up to $6 million. I think he's penciled in as your strong safety right now with Malachi Moore as your third safety. I still think they could add a safety. If you told me Belton was your 3 and Malachi Moore is your 4, I think that's a pretty solid safety room. Right now with Belton as your strong safety and Moore, in my opinion, as your 3, I think it's a little bit lacking, but not a position of dire need anymore. Where Belton, with his upside, like there's some Giants fans who are like, yeah, just in limited playing time, he's getting picks, he's forcing fumbles, tackles for loss. So a guy who in limited time is producing. Now maybe he's like an Ashton Davis, where Ashton Davis ran into some of those picks, and it's more he was like the beneficiary of some lucky circumstances where he didn't really like produce himself for those numbers. So I'll see. I have to watch him. He's my next watch, at least a game of him. But your strong safety's there. You have your free safety. But like I said, with the multiplicity of the front, like, and I should probably write this down, but like base defense, you could have, let's say it's a nose tackle and a 3-tech and a 5-tech, or a nose tackle and 2 4-eyes, whatever it's going to be. I'll refer to those other guys as DNs for right now. So you have Phillips and Sweat, who are your 0 and your 1-techs, with Onyemata, who I think can play again in rush downs. We're going to do base now. You have Phillips, You have Phillips and Sweat. I think Sweat's your starter in base, and Phillips rotates in. So they're going to play like 50, they're probably going to be like 55, 45 in terms of the snap percentage. So those are two really good nose tackles. I think your D ends in base is probably going to look like you're probably going to have Briggs on one side. And then I'm going to say you have a rotation of Onyemata and Egbari as your other D end. But I think Briggs is at least he's going to be solidified as one D end there. And then a rotation of Onyemata and Egbari as the other D end. And then in terms of the linebackers in that base, it's going to be Sherwood as your weak side stand-up backer. It's going to be Davis as your Mike or your strong side backer. And then on the edges, and I'm going to assume in this situation they're drafting Reese. You're going to have Reese as your Jack, your backside outside linebacker, or your weak side outside linebacker. And then I think on the front side, your strong side outside linebacker, your Sam, is going to be Osai. So that's your base. I think if you're looking for more of a rush look, let's go to a 3-3-5. You're probably looking at you could probably have a Briggs. You can have Briggs as your nose tackle, as your 0, as your 1. I think your DNs in that situation could be both Osai and Agnegbari as your rushers, as like your DNs in that 3-3-5. And then your 3 backers in that set would be, you can have Will McDonald as the weak side. You could have Reese as the strong side outside backer. And then you have Davis as your stand-up backer in that 3-3-5. And that's a good rush unit, or a solid rush unit right there. And then if you're looking for a run stuffing situation, let's say it's a 3-4. And again, I know I'm going through a lot of stuff here. If you're looking for a run stuff, at minimum, their run game needs to be better in terms of defensively, because they have a ton of guys who are run defenders first on the front 7, with Sweat, with Onyemata, with Agnegbari, with even Briggs at certain points is a really good run defender. That's what he was brought here from the Browns, but obviously he produced as a pass rusher as well. But 3-4, and then your corners in that situation too. Stevens, willing tackler. Nashawn Wright, who I haven't talked about, willing tackler. Brownlee, overly willing tackler. AZ Thomas, willing tackler. So they should definitely be a better run defending unit. But let's go to a 3-4 run stopping group. Now obviously they can just get heavier on the defensive line, but let's say it's 3rd and 2 and they're running a 3-4. You can have Sweat as your nose tackle, Phillips and Briggs, or let's say Sweat as your nose tackle, Phillips as definitely one of the DNs, and then you can either have Onyemata or Briggs as the other DN, and then your 4 backers in that situation, you could have Osai on the weak side, Agnegbari as a strong side outside linebacker, and then you have Davis as your front side back, stand-up backer. And then in that situation, if you do draft Reese, I would kick Sherwood out of the game and then bring Reese in the game as your stand-up will backer, who would obviously get a run fit. So they have so much versatility on this defense now. And I'm not saying that any of these guys are Max Crosby or anything like that, but I really like the versatility they just added in the front 7. I love the Fitzpatrick addition. I still have to get into Belton. But also the other movie to talk about is Nashawn Wright too, right? Like you're talking about, I think it's a 1 year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, I know you will. It's a 1 year, $4 million contract, or 3.5, and it can get up to 5.5. I don't know if it's like playtime incentives or stat incentives with that, but a guy who he had like 4 or 5 picks last year. I forget all the stats off the top of my head. 4 or 5 picks last year, 11 pass deflections, a couple of fumble recoveries. So he was very productive. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. Again, a willing tackler, a guy who could play off as a cover 3 guy, or he could play in like press situations in a cover 1 or in quarters looks. He's not the fastest guy in the world, so you definitely want to get his hands on early or play him in off coverage in like a 3. But a guy who produced in terms of pass deflections, a guy who produced in terms of interceptions, fumble recoveries, I believe it was. He had a decently high number. So, and only high of $5.5 million. So you added great depth. And I'm not even saying necessarily he's depth. I think going into the season, you have a 3-way competition for 2 spots. You have your 2 outside corners, and there's 3 guys for 2 spots. So it's Wright versus Stevens versus AZ Thomas for 2 spots. The loser of that competition goes down to your 4th corner, and then right now Brownlee is your corner 3, and Stiggers is your corner 5. And Stiggers he was pretty solid when he came in last year. So you now have really good depth. I'm hoping AZ Thomas wins one of those spots, and then it's going to be Wright or Stevens as your other one, and the other one is your fourth corner. And then again, Stiggers as your 5 is really, really good depth there as well. So they're not adding a ton of like top tier talent minus Fitzpatrick. But the depth they added and the versatility they added is very nice. And they're giving themselves some flexibility in the draft where you can add a depth safety, you can add a starter, in the draft. If you don't get one, not the end of the world. I think at linebacker, you still need a depth linebacker, but if you didn't grab one, you have Maui Noah as your linebacker 3, not a position you absolutely need anymore. Defensive line, you don't need a nose tackle. You don't need a D-end anymore. You don't need an outside linebacker. So I see the needs on defense being like a safety 2 or a safety 3 still. Linebacker depth is really all I'm seeing right now. I'm assuming they're going to have Reese, and he adds so much to your defense where he could be, again, that Jack. He could be that Sam. He could be a stand-up Will in certain sets. He could blitz, you could sugar him in the A-gap and blitz him versus the center. You can play him, you could delay blitz him off the edge. Like, there's so much he could do for this defense. So I'm very happy so far with free agency, just based on my expectations. A lot of the receivers went for some crazy money. Alec Pierce went for $27 million, which is crazy. They got rid of Pittman, which I think you can argue that Pittman's even better than Pierce, but I guess Pierce is younger and has produced more recently, so they gave him a contract. But that was a big contract. Romeo Dobbs just got $20 million from the Pats per year. So I don't see the Jets adding a receiver to be like the receiver 2. I think the only guy who's out there who could still be like a receiver 2 relative to their expectations is a Juwan Jennings. And based on these contracts that some of these guys are signing, I don't think the Jets are going to sign Juwan Jennings for $18, $19, $20 million a year, maybe even more than that. I think they may add a receiver 4 and then go into the draft. And then one of those top 4 picks is going to be a receiver. But continue to look at the offense a little bit. I think they have 2 primary massive needs right now still, and that is a receiver 2. They undoubtedly do not have one right now. I think AD is a fine 3, and then I think you need to add a 4. So receiver 2 and 4 are needed, and then you have 1.5 needs on the offensive line. To me, in my perfect world, Myers is a backup depth, or interior depth type of guy. He could play center. He could play both guard spots. So I think he's good depth. He was kind of what the Jets signed him to be, right? He was a low end starting center or a very good swing interior offensive lineman, like backup. I'm not penciling him as a starter. If he is a starter, it's not the worst case in the world. But you need at least another starter added to this. Whether that be a big fish in free agency. I don't know who's left at guard right now. But you need to give yourself flexibility in the draft, because if you go into the draft with nothing at left guard and Myers is your center, you need to draft a offensive lineman at 16. I don't think they're going to go into the draft forcing themselves into an offensive lineman at 16. So I think they will add a starter at left guard. And then if a scenario presents itself, in whether it be in free agency where a guy you like is coming for a cheaper contract than you'd expect, you can sign him to compete with Myers, or a guy you really like falls to, 16 or 33 or 44, then he can compete with Myers. Or maybe the Jets sign Elton Jenkins and he can, there's some ways to go with free agency being only, 24 hours deep or 30 hours deep. But they need an interior offensive lineman. They need a receiver 2. I don't think they're going to get a receiver 2. So I think going into the draft, that's the only thing they're forced to pick within the top 4 picks, in my opinion, because they don't need a DN. Like, Reese is the pick, so pick 2 is gone to in my opinion. So one of 16, 33, or 44 needs to be that receiver. Now maybe, and in my perfect world, receiver 2 is a huge need. Let's say the Jets really clean up in this free agency and they add Elton Jenkins and he's your left guard. You don't need one at 16. You really need a receiver at that point. You package 16 and 44 and you land a receiver who could undoubtedly be a receiver 2 in Tate or Lemon at like 6, 7, 8, 9 maybe. And then 33 is maybe they trade up for Simpson from 33. Maybe they take 33 and 103 and they trade up to 26 and get Simpson, like whatever it may be. But you need another interior offensive lineman before the draft. That's like bar none. Undoubtedly, you need it. But defense, they hammered it. They did really well on defense. I'll get to the chat in a little bit too. I know I'm going on just a long kind of, not even a rant, just going in 1,000 different directions. I'm still gonna have to go upstairs and watch so many more games of these guys. I have so much film to watch. It's crazy. Geno Smith. I don't want to, we've been talking about quarterbacks so long, I don't really want to do it. There's just so many directions you can take this. He threw the most interceptions in the NFL last year, right? 17 touchdowns, 17 picks. I think he missed 2 or 3 games last year. He's a little bit volatile, where I think the ceiling can be like decent, and obviously it's all relative, right? I think the ceiling can be decently high, where maybe he can sniff a Fitzpatrick season, where he could throw for maybe 25 touchdowns, 15, 16 picks, and high 3,000 yards. Do remember that 2 years ago, he did throw for, I think it was like 25 touchdowns, 4,200 yards, and 15 picks or something like that, or 17 picks. So if you can get another year like that from Geno, I think it's a good placeholder. Now I can see him doing that, where he's throwing for nearly 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, high in teens and interceptions. We're like, okay, you'd probably sign the dotted line for that. Or he continues to regress like he did last year a little bit. Now, you do have to be fair to him. He had a bad situation with the Raiders, and there was some rumors about him and Chip Kelly not getting along and them executing plays in the game that they didn't necessarily practice, which is obviously a huge red flag for Chip Kelly. Not a good offensive line. So you bring into it, let's say you do land Lemon, and you have Lemon and Garrett Wilson, you have Brees, you land Elton Jenkins as your interior offensive lineman. You have a good offensive line. You have a good receiver 1, 2, and 3. You have a solid rookie tight end or a second-year tight end in Mason Taylor. So I think Geno can come in here and maybe produce something close to that Fitzpatrick year, or he can come in and get injured and or throw a 14 touchdown and 20 pick season, and then you're a top 5 pick anyway, and you get your quarterback of the future. So at least it'll be fun with Geno. There's definitely some volatility there, but I don't look at Geno and then look at like a Kirk Cousins or a Brissett and be like, oh my God, we really missed out. One, because Kirk Cousins is apparently asking for $25 million a year right now. And I don't know if that's a legit report, but let's say he gets $25 million a year and you win 6 games with Kirk Cousins. 7 games with Kirk Cousins. Is that better than getting Geno Smith, who will win you 5 or 6 games? In that same scenario with, however it played out with Cousins, playing the same way with Geno, like he's probably a plus win quarterback to Geno. At baseline, I think Geno could have a higher ceiling than a Kirk Cousins, but a much lower floor at the same time. But with all that being said, you're paying Geno $1.3 million. We're paying Kirk Cousins maybe $24 million more than that. So is it really better? Brissett, you have to trade for him, a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, plus whatever the contract is. Is that definitely better than Geno? I don't know. Now, if your argument's going to be like, Kyler definitely has a higher ceiling and stuff like that, I can understand if you're upset with them not going after Kyler because of Geno. But if he's going to the Vikings, then it is what it is. And then I can even understand with Carr, like, hey, Carr probably gives you a higher ceiling than Geno Smith, or a more reachable higher ceiling than Geno Smith, but he also hasn't played in the NFL in a year, is even coming out. So bringing a long answer to a short answer, I'm not getting my panties in a bunch over Geno Smith, who I think has a similar ceiling as a Brissett or a Cousins, and he's costing you much less in terms of either draft capital and or contract. Now, how mature is he? He's running off the field with the Raiders last year, flipping the Raiders fans the double bird. So maybe he's not the most mature guy in the world, and maybe he's not a guy who you want mentoring. Let's say it's a Ty Simpson or something like that. Or at least being in the room with him, not necessarily mentoring him. So I get the hate of Geno, but for a bridge option who's costing you $1.3 million, I'm not going to lose it. Like, honestly, if you're telling me right now, Kirk Cousins for $25 million or Geno for 1.3, give me Geno. Save those $24 million. So that's like basically, and I don't know what the contract's going to be. I honestly don't. But would you rather have Geno and Elton Jenkins or Kirk Cousins? Give me Geno and Elton Jenkins. So, and probably Elton Jenkins plus. So, I'm not losing my mind. I get it if you wanted Kyler Murray or Carr or whatever, but Carr would cost you, what would the contract be? $20 million, whatever that's going to be. So, I'm not going to lose it. And I see the first comment here is from Eagle. I'm so disgusted beyond words. The Jets traded for Geno Smith. Everyone has to go. I'm sorry. And watch, they won't even land number 1 pick to add to our, again, after what I just said, like, why is it so bad for $1.3 million? Like, it's better than Wentz. Now, I would like them to add another guy to the room to compete with Geno Smith. I don't want Geno being your QB1 bar none the entire season. So whether that be a Simpson, if that's their plan, if their plan is we're going balls to the wall for Simpson, we're going to trade up for Simpson and Geno Smith, fine. If it's not Simpson, it's like a Taylor Green or Nussmeier or a Lar in the 5th round, then I'd like to bring in maybe like a Carr or a Brissett or somebody to compete with Geno Smith. But if it's like Geno, Wentz, and Taylor Green, I'm not going to be thrilled about it. I want to see a little bit better of a quarterback too with Geno Smith. But again, Geno Smith for 1.3 or Kirk Cousins for 25. Like, give me, I'll take Geno. I'm not as down as on Geno as Eagle Thing is. At the end of the day, there's really no good options, and I'm okay with saving some money and signing a guy for $1 million or 1.3 and losing 20 spots from the 6th round to the 7th round, I believe it is. So, from the questions, I know I just kind of rambled on for 30 minutes or so there. But yeah, I'm not losing my mind. I think they do a lot more film with these guys, but again, they offer you such versatility. Osai, Onyemata. Well, Osai and Yambari can play outside linebacker D end, and Onyemata can be a 1-tech to a 5-tech. I really like that. Belton's a box guy, so I think Fitzpatrick is your free safety. Now, people are a little bit concerned about the lack of interceptions the last 2 years. I know at least with the Dolphins last year, what I've heard is there's some injuries and he was forced into the box a little bit more. So he's not going to be able to pick as many balls off in the box as you are going to be like roaming deep. And there's people who are out there like, oh yeah, well maybe he's fallen off a little bit. I think he was like PFF's like a top 10 safety for them. Same thing with Davis. But Fitzpatrick, I would be more concerned with him falling off a cliff if I watched him and I was like, he's winning because of acceleration. He's winning because of speed. He's winning because of burst. That's not how he's ever won. Like, while I recognize that he was always a solid athlete, he won because of his mind and his eyes taking him into the right like places and how to leverage over concepts and anticipation of concepts and driving on routes before they're broken off and things like that. So I've seen that already through one game. I'm like, damn, he's cutting off routes really, really well. He played a little bit more high in the first game from what I watched. But I would say the rest of the season, I guess, is going to be more in the box, but good in coverage, good tackler. Didn't get you a ton of picks the last few years, but again, forced into a bad role last year for him. But I like that. I like that trade a ton. I do. I think it's a splash. He's at this point in his career, he's 29 years old. He's still a top 10 safety in the league, and you got him for a 7th round pick, which, if you look at it, I believe I saw this maybe from Scott Mason on Twitter, who's one of the good ones out there. They traded a 6th round pick for Brownlee in a 7th. So you then traded that 7th for Fitzpatrick. So you turned a 6th round pick into Fitzpatrick and Brownlee as your starting corner. Pretty good asset management from Muji. So Muji, in my opinion right now, is doing very well in free agency. Again, I don't think this makes the Jets. And I put it out on Twitter, like, because I woke up. I don't want to put I woke up because I know there's going to be people who are like, why are you sleeping at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? It's because I slept from 11 p.m. to about 1:30, 2 p.m. Or sorry, 11:30 a.m. to about 2:30 p.m. And I woke up and I saw they just were hammering defense. And I put it out there on Twitter and I was like, wow, the Jets are really attacking the defensive side of the ball. And then people were commenting like, oh, you think the Jets are going to be great? You're an idiot. Like, I didn't say that. I think that they brought in a lot of floor raising type of players, really good run defenders who have some pass rush upside. And I think they've went from the 32nd, either the 31st or the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL, them and the Bengals being the 2 worst defenses in the NFL, and brought themselves closer to average. You know, I think with this group, if you have good coaching, and obviously there's a lot, that's a large factor in how good this team is going to be. Like, if they have predictable blitzes and stuff like that, like they did with Wilkes, they're not going to be great. But assuming they're decently coached on defense, I think that should be a middle of the pack defense right now. You know, are you 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, like something like that? I think that's my expectation for them with all these guys that they brought in. And they're not even done yet. Like, I don't think they have to bring in another starting safety, but let's say they love Thiemann, people are going to be like, oh, there's no way he falls at 33. We don't know that. Or they like let's say they like Halsey at 33. I think it's, he say his name, the safety from LSU. Boom, there's a starter right there at safety, but they don't need anything on defense necessarily, which is really nice. Again, they need some depth. I would argue, again, depth at safety, linebacker right now, but it's not an absolute need for them. So yeah, I like what they've done. Okay, not a lot of ceiling raises necessarily, but the floor is raised. Their run defense, if you have Phillips, Briggs, Onyemata, Sweat on the field, and you have Reese and Demario Davis, Brownlee, Stevens, and AZ Thomas and Minka. They're all and let's go with Belton too, who's a good tackler. This should not be a team you can run on. This should at the minimum. At the minimum. Now, I think a lot of the pass rush hinges upon Glenn and him being creative because, Enyobari is a okay at best pass rusher. I think Osai is kind of a JJ level player in terms of he's a little bit bigger. He's not as bendy or explosive as JJ. And I'm not even saying JJ is bendy or explosive, but it's just for comparison's sake. Osai is a little bit worse of an athlete, but in my opinion, he's stronger in the run game. He's going to hold up better in the run game than JJ would. JJ he disappointed me a little bit in the run game, but in the pass game, as a rusher, I think he does a little bit better in terms of like setting up his rush, short striding guys, anticipating hand accuracy. So while he doesn't have the ceiling maybe of JJ as a rusher, he's more consistent to me. And again, if you're a little bit more bendy and twitchy and more bend, doesn't mean you're going to be a better player in terms of a pass rusher. If the other player on the opposite side is a better technician. So I look at Osai as kind of a similar player as JJ in terms of he's a guy who's a good run defender on the edge. And he offers you an effort pass rusher who can get you 5 to 10 sacks. That's kind of what I see him as. I do think Osai offers you more flexibility than JJ because I think he's dropped into coverage a little bit in his career, which you're going to have to do sometimes as a 3-4 outside linebacker. And again, I do think on pass rush downs, he could play 4-eye, he could play 5, but he also gives you the versatility, not only in terms of the dropping back into coverage, but I watched some reps of him and I was expecting like strictly outside of the tackle or outside linebacker. And there were some rushes he was playing 3-tech, which is in between the guard and the tackle. And there were some times he's even rushing against the center. So you can move him all around the defensive line. But I think mainly he's going to be that strong side outside linebacker or a D-end in some rush situations, D-end, D-tackle, whatever you want to label it. So yeah, I really like the versatility. I know Enyobari is a guy who he's been trending upwards. He's a guy who gets you 5 sacks. I think he has 5 sacks each of the last 2 years with 20-something pressures. So he's going to get you like a pressure and a half a game, 5 sacks and be a good run defender. And I think he's going to be your base starting, D end. Let's say it's like a 4-eye and a 3-4. I think he's going to be your primary starter as a 4-eye. Him and Onyemata are going to kind of rotate there. So I think they're both going to get like 50% of the snaps each. I think Osai is going to be like a 60-65% snap getter as an outside linebacker who can flex down sometimes. And then you have Phillips and Sweat. And I think they're going to be about 55 Sweat, 45 Phillips to keep those guys nice and fresh. So you have Phillips and Sweat who are kind of interchangeable, and I think Phillips can flex out to the end in some rush situations. I think Enyobari and Onyemata are going to be a little bit interchangeable, where I think Onyemata is more of a is more of like he's a little bit bigger, so I think he'll play more interior than Enyobari can. But I think they're going to be competing for snaps and base as another D end, opposite of Briggs. And I think Briggs is a guy who's going to get you 60-65% of the reps as well. But you're going to keep guys fresh. They're good 8-9 guys deep in the defensive line, which is awesome. And I think it really opens up the game for Reese to be able to rush as a Jack, as a Will standing up, strong side. Sometimes he's really going to give them flexibility. So I love the moves. I do. Maybe I'm just coping because I haven't seen the Jets be good in so long. I'm really buying in because I need it more than I need water. But I think I'm being realistic. I don't think I'm saying any of these guys are great. I think Enyobari is a pretty average D end, which is better than Clemens. And that's kind of the role he's going to take, like that strong side defensive end. I think Osai is a guy who is, again, an average D end. And I think he's a little bit better than Enyobari, but I think he has a little bit more upside than Enyobari as a pass rusher. And sorry if I'm butchering that name. But he's a JJ type of player who's less bendy and twitchy, but more of a technician. But he's also 2 or 3 years younger than JJ. Osai is 25, 26, and JJ is like 27, 28. So you're getting 2 or 3 years younger. No injuries, and a guy whose arrow is pointing up right now. So I like it. I do. I don't think I'm just trying to cope. I think they went from a horrific defense to what should be like an average defense. And I think I'm only saying average because they don't have a lot of ceiling raisers. I think Fitzpatrick can be a top 10 safety. I think Demario Davis can still be a top 10 linebacker. We'll see what happens with the Reese and McDonald and all that stuff. But yeah, I think they're an average defense, which is a lot better. And then the offense is not so far away. Now, obviously, a lot of this hinges upon quarterback and coach. But if you told me they had, again, let's live in a alternate universe where they have Joe Burrow. If you had Joe Burrow to this team and a good coach, this could be a team that legitimately competes. If you have an average defense with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Mason Taylor, another addition to the interior offensive line, a receiver in the first 4 picks, with an actual quarterback and a coach, like the roster is not so far away. Again, you want to get your Quinn Williamses and your Sauces of the world in the future, and hopefully get a few of those guys next year. But the floor has raised. I'm checking my phone to see if there's anything else that's popped up. Brendan Smith to the Texans. Yeah, I just really want to see an interior offensive lineman just to give them true flexibility. Because I think at this point right now, you're kind of forced into an interior offensive lineman at 16. Whereas if you sign an Elton Jenkins, you could really just take the best player available there, or even trade up for a receiver. Which if you sign Elton Jenkins, I am 1,000% even more locked into trading up for a receiver, because that's your final like legitimate starting hole, in my opinion. And I would say the third is either another interior offensive lineman to replace Myers or a safety to replace Belton. Like those are your third and fourth needs. After interior offensive lineman 1, receiver 2, center 3, strong safety 4. I'd probably say depth at linebacker 5, tight end 2 or 3 at 6. Try where I'm at right now. But I'm waiting for a Jenkins or something like that to sign. Which actually, let's see, free agent interior offensive. I'm gonna Google that real quick, and then I'm gonna get into the chat. Because I want to see, because that's the thing I really, really want to get next. Interior offensive lineman. Okay, so these are. Hold on, damn it. Let me just. I'll make too many pages up right now, so it's limiting my. Oh, available. Okay, I was on sign. Like all these guys are signed. There's no players who are available right now. So interior offensive. This is offensive lineman. Hold on. Oh, you can't differentiate between. Okay, so it's just offensive lineman. Stupid spot track. I'm trying to see who's available. Joel Bitonio, 34 years old. We just need to go hold the fort guy. The market value spot track is $12 million. Now, be aware that they've said like Nashawn Wright was a guy who's gonna make $12 million, so they can make more or less than these contracts. But $12 million for him, it's predicted. Wyatt Teller, another decent guard from the Browns, $10 million predicted AAV. Lloyd Cushenberry, I don't know how well he's played, honestly. Mekhi Becton, absolutely not. James Daniels, I'm not sure how well he's played or been injuries or not. Graham Glasgow, some crossover there with Glenn and Glasgow being in Detroit. You guys get that? Yeah, so it seems like there's some interior defensive or offensive linemen still available who would be okay. Yeah, James Daniels, Cushenberry, Wyatt Teller, Bitonio, Elton Jenkins is out there. So we shall see, but that's something that you need to do. Absolutely need to do it. Receiver 2 is coming in the draft. You got a safety. There's so many things you could do now. Okay, let me see. Sorry for the 40 minutes of not hitting the chat, but I'll catch up now. I became a Jets fan at the time of Fitzmagic, so I don't have a bad memory. So I don't have bad memories of Geno. He fits the bill of a one-year starter. Yeah, that's what he is. He's a bridge quarterback, right? I don't think anybody expected a true answer at quarterback this year, right? Unless you wanted Malik Willis. He signed for a little bit less than I expected, about $25 million. But that's a big risk to take with where the team is now, with the unknown at head coach and all that stuff. And after just taking that risk on Justin, like a similar type of risk on Fields. Obviously different, right? Fields had more playing time and stuff, and Willis had very limited playing time, but still a risk. So if that was your argument, fine. If you wanted Murray and you thought he was gonna be like a longer term guy, because I think Murray's really the only guy out there opposite of Malik Willis working out as being like the longer term guys. So if you wanted Murray, fine. But Murray seemed to be a lock in or a shoe in for the Vikings, and that's apparently what's going to happen. But if you wanted him and you hate Geno, I understand, but maybe he's not an option. If you wanted Willis and you got Geno, okay, I understand your argument, but I'm not with you because I didn't want Willis. But if you're going to lose your mind because you wanted Kirk Cousins or Brissett or Carr over Geno, I'm just not there, especially considering, again, you have to trade for Brissett. You have to give a decent contract to Cousins where Geno is costing you, nothing. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about him flipping the bird, and obviously with the Jets getting punched out by IK because he didn't repay a $600 plane ticket. I believe he told IK he was going to a charity event for kids. IK fronted him a plane ticket, and then Geno didn't come, and IK was like, yo, pay me my $600. Like, I bought you a plane ticket. You didn't even show up. And then he said no, and IK punched him out, which he deserved, if that's what really happened. But so I'm a little bit worried about the volatility of Geno, but like you said, he's a 1-year starter. I'm not losing my mind over Geno versus Cousins or Brissett. Again, if you wanted Murray, I can understand that. Let me get to some super chats. Edward Ariza. Yeah, I didn't see a comment. I will check for it in the actual chat if there's a comment under this, but I appreciate the super chat. I don't want to do too many monies, but screw it, I guess we are. Joey, get Reese. We will have one kick-ass front seven. Dude, like I said, if you're in a run situation and you want to get all these guys on the defensive line, like Onyemata and like Demario and whoever else, you could do that and you can play a stand-up backer and he can have whatever run fit that Sherwood has, because I'm taking Reese as a linebacker playing forward or Sherwood. Now, obviously, if you're dropping back in a coverage and things like that, you're going to take Sherwood over Reese because experience doing that. But he could be that will in a run situation. I think on normal downs, he's going to play as your jack, as your weak side outside linebacker. But you can also play Sam on the front side of certain looks. And again, rush versus guards, rush centers in certain looks where he's standing up as that will backer. So he adds so much versatility. And this defensive front already has so much versatility, but you add Reese to it as well with that ceiling. And McDonald too, man. Like, I'm going to have a Will McDonald review out there. Let me actually share this. I will say I am higher on Will McDonald than other people. The amount of times he won, but the ball was out instantly and after a three-step drop because there's no coverage in the secondary from the linebackers was astonishing. So I don't think he was great last year, but he had 8 sacks, right? But I would argue, and I don't think there's too much of an argument. I think on a normal team where the quarterback has to hold the ball for a little bit and there's not as many blown coverages, instead of 8 sacks, Will McDonald probably has 11 last year. 10 or 11, and we're looking at it like, damn, okay, 2 back-to-back double sack seasons for McDonald. So I'm a little bit higher on him. And then with that all being said, if you were to draft a Bailey, I don't think you're not going to have Bailey as a first-round pick and McDonald as a first-round pick playing all that often together. So I think you're going to have to make a choice. And obviously, if you make the Bailey choice, I think McDonald's gone. Now, yeah, Bailey and McDonald on certain rush or on certain pass rush situations, it would be fun as your outside linebackers. But I think it's an overinvestment in pass rush specialists, because I think Bailey could be better than Will McDonald in the run game. But again, Texas Tech sat him at times in certain run situations, and he's not a guy you want playing on the strong side. So he would be a backside outside linebacker, and that's the only role that McDonald has. So you have to get rid of Will McDonald. And to me, I'm not willing to give up on Will McDonald because I see him being a guy who can get you double-digit sacks every year. I think he can get into the upper teens in the most ideal situation for him, and he reaches his ceiling. So I'm not willing to give up on Will McDonald for Bailey. Whereas you drafted Reese, I think Will McDonald still is on the team. You could still have him as a rusher on that weak side, and you have Reese on the strong side or standing up or whatever it may be. So I'm not willing to give up on McDonald, and I think with Bailey being drafted at 2, you're going to have to do that. And then with all that being said, past the Will McDonald stuff, me personally, I don't think Bailey's worth a second overall pick in this draft. I'm taking Reese 10 times out of 10, even minus the fit and stuff. So yeah, I don't think it's Bailey. What I want to find is something. Let me see. I'm trying to find the Will McDonald thing that I was just talking about. No, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not in here. Oh, that's gonna piss me off. Maybe I put it on Twitter. I don't know. I gotta find my Will McDonald rush. I did a thing where like all the rush attempts that he had that he won instantly, but the ball was out. But I can't find it on my computer, so my bad. But thank you, Fernando. Cornerback. Do a little whoop-ah for you, which is one of my favorite videos of all time. If you haven't, look up I don't know, surfer smack the lip. It'll probably come up. One of my favorite videos of all time. No Skills $5 super chat or €5 or whatever exactly that is. Here's me chipping in on the Geno plane ticket fund. It takes all of us to keep his chin intact. Appreciate that, No Skills. Yeah, man. That's I'm a little bit concerned with him in terms of like his maturity or lack thereof, but as a bridge, I'm not losing my mind. Again, I think he offers you the ceiling of mid-20s touchdowns, in the teens and the interceptions and high 3,000, yards, maybe low 4,000s. I'm not gonna lose my mind, especially for 1.3. Now, if he signed for $20 million, it'd be a different story, but he's costing you veteran minimum. You have him for nothing. So I can't lose my mind. I refuse to do it. If last year couldn't bring me down, them signing Geno is not going. At least it'll be fun. If it's really bad, it'll be fun. If he's really good, redemption arc, it'll be really fun. So there's that. Okay. Michael, is Geno on $2 million so much worse than option than Kirk on 15? And apparently Kirk Cousins, and it's out there. Maybe it's just obviously agents and stuff, and then gassing up the media or whatever. But he's expecting like $25 million. So let's meet in the middle and say Geno at 1.3 or Kirk at 20. You're saving $18 million. Is Kirk Cousins one more win potentially worth $18 million? It's not to me. Again, Geno at 1.3 or Kirk at 20, I'm taking Geno. Geno at $1.3 million or Brissett for a fourth, give me Geno at $1.3 million. I'm not gonna pay $20 million or a fourth round pick for another win or two. Again, and Geno may have the higher ceiling because if he did what he did 2 years ago and he has 4,200 yards and mid-20s and touchdowns, then we're gonna enjoy that season. Right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here. I think it's the past scars of Geno. What's up, Matt? Jets are drafting Ty at 2. I've never been more confident about that as I am now. Now, I think with what they did to their defensive front, I think it opens that opportunity because I don't think Reese is necessarily in need now. I still do think he's drafted though. I think he's still drafted at 2. Now, I think this really opens them up at 16 for Simpson, or maybe like everybody's talking about receiver trading up. What if they really like Simpson and they want to trade 16 and 44 to get him at 7 or something like that, and like jump some teams, jump the Dolphins, or the Dolphins just brought in Willis, right? So they're not going to draft him. Browns are at what pick? 7, 6, 5? I don't know. I forget where they're at. I think it's Reese though. I still think it's Reese. But you're telling me like, again, reset. If the draft was reset to Simpson at 16, Brazil at 33, and at 44, it's like Halsey or interior offensive lineman to compete with Myers, and you sign Elton Jenkins. Like I'm okay with drafting Simpson at 16. At 2, I don't think it's gonna happen. I still think it's Reese. He really fits into what they're doing now. Again, with the multiplicity and just the aggression. Like all these guys are aggressive. Just watching Onyemata, watching Egnibari, and whoever else, they're all, again, run first guys for the most part. I think that Osai is a little bit more, he's a little bit more even past the run, but everybody else is aggressive in the run game. So Reese really fits that bill, and he offers you that pass rush upside as well. So I think it's Reese. I want Tate at 2 from a Candela. Tate is my number 2 player on my board. So if it wasn't Reese for whatever reason, it would be Tate. But I think it's Reese. I'm pretty locked into that now. That's going to be him. We got a vet bridge quarterback who has played here before in the cold. Everyone stopped complaining. Yeah, that, and he has an arm, right? Like he, now reading defenses consistently, his accuracy can either be very good or very bad at times. There's definitely volatility with the accuracy. Maybe he's lost a step. He's not as mobile as he was when he was 24 years old or whatever. But he has a good arm. He has good size. He's like 220 pounds, so he's played here. He knows what the market is, which could be good and bad. Some old memories, some old graves can be dug up with Geno, but he knows what to expect. He can throw in the cold. He has a good arm. He has a good release. He has solid accuracy at times. Again, $1.3 million. I can't lose it. I just can't. There's no reason to get mad. Either it works out and he's your bridge, like we all expect him to be, or if something goes wrong, he goes rogue. He's flipping off fans. He's not going to media sessions, whatever it is. You get rid of him. You cut him. He's $1.3 million. So if he's really that bad, you get rid of him. But I think more realistically, he's going to get you. He's a starter for the 2026 Jets. He's going to get you, prediction, top of my head with nothing else right now, he's going to get you 23 touchdowns, 3,700 yards, and 16 picks, 15 picks. Just not like, is that okay? 24 touchdowns, 16 picks, 3,700, 3,800 yards. Like that's kind of, if I had to predict his stats, like that's where he's going to be. Better offensive line than the Raiders, better number one receiver. Number two probably coming in. Number three, solid in my opinion with AD Mitchell. So I like they signed another outside corner. Now with three on the roster, they'll have a good competition. They won't have to rely on Stevens. Yeah. And Nashawn Wright, like he's 27 years old, right? So if he has another good year with the Jets, maybe he signs another, a year or two extension. And then Stevens is gone after this year. And if not, he doesn't beat out Stevens or AZ Thomas, then he's your corner four, and everybody moves down a spot, which is great for depth, right? Because I think Stiggers is a decent 4, but a good 5. And I think Wright or Stevens could be all of them are like a really good 4, but an okay starter. So it gives you, again, that depth, which is great. Defense should be serviceable. The offense can use a few players. Yeah. 2 interior offensive linemen and receiver, in my opinion. Depth at tight end. Beloved piece, because we signed a 36-year-old Geno for a bag of chips. Are talking about cancels out for Simpson. Somebody that was not directed at me, Tankertai. Why does it feel like no matter what the Jets do, people are going to crap on it? Dude, I said the other day on Twitter, I think I mentioned before, I said the Jets attack defense. People are like, oh, you're too positive. Typically, I'm too negative. Oh, you're putting up negative plays to these guys. You're saying they're not going to be good. I said that Malachi Moore's not a starter. Oh, you're too negative. I say, oh, they attack defense. You're too positive. So you can't win, There's no nuance in conversation anymore. It's either you very much agree with somebody or very much disagree. There can be no I see your point, but I slightly disagree. It's so people are going to love a move or hate a move. You can't be lukewarm on a move. And this is kind of what I am. I'm lukewarm on it. Is that okay? Shadow Maniac, come on, let's have another breaking news. Yeah, I would love it. Actually, I should probably have one of you sick bastards is going to fake me out. I know it, but I'm going to throw on the stream just in case there is any breaking news. You guys can tell me because I can't keep checking Twitter. Please let me know if there's real shit in there. Not Curly Norman. I think it was you who asked me a question about balls or something like that on Jake's stream, or something about throw up, or I think that was Curly last week. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm sorry if I am. Okay. Joe, would you go Reese or Bailey at 2? I already hit this. Bailey means you get rid of Will McDonald, so it's not only Bailey over Reese. I think it's Bailey over Reese plus you giving up on Will McDonald and having to trade him at this point, which I don't think is worth it, because I think Bailey and McDonald have similar ceilings. Now, obviously, Bailey's younger and you have him for more controlled years, but in my opinion, on a normal team last year, he has, Will McDonald gets you 11 sacks. Even if Bailey's a really good rusher, maybe he gets you 13, 14, while Will McDonald and another team is getting them 11 or 12, and with a little bit higher upside in the rush game. But I don't think teams are going to want to play him on the strong side as an outside linebacker. Now, maybe he could develop into a weak side outside linebacker, but not right now. So I think you're also giving up on Will McDonald with Bailey. Reese, you don't have to. Give me Reese all day. And I just like him more individually as a player. Jets, Eagle, if they sign Wentz for $5 million and Geno for 1.3, that does not mean that Simpson is not an option. It's not true. It's just not true. Neither of those guys prohibit Simpson. If they sign Malik Willis or Kyler Murray, I would understand a little bit more. No Simpson, but Wentz does not prohibit Simpson. Glenn is doing all he could with his defense to keep his job. Like the Giants had Russell Wilson and Jameis. Did they prevent them from drafting Dart last year? Like it's actually, if you bring in Simpson, I would like Wentz, because then, he's your failsafe for Geno if you don't want to rush Simpson. Mojo, what's up, dude? I haven't seen you in a little bit. So far, not a bad offseason considering the options. Geno at the minimum isn't bad. It's not, in my opinion. Again, I'm lukewarm on it. It's fine. Considering the other options, it's all right. I like the defensive additions, all of them. Joe, do you see Will McDonald being traded on draft night? I do not, unless it's Bailey. If it's Bailey, I think you have to trade him, because I don't think you can have both of them on the field at the same time very often at all. And you're going to have to, and they're both more so specialists. So no. Tate Reese at 2, Ty Simpson at 16, or trade up from 16 to go get him. We really need him at quarterback. Best QB in the draft, F. Mendoza. Again, I'm okay with Simpson. Rob D, we're going to know real quick if Geno was a victim of bad Raiders team. Honestly, I land in the middle. He regressed, but also things were made where I'll know. I'm watching his entire season, unfortunately. I'm going to have to watch all 14, 15 games. So I'll know soon. But I think he had he had a bunch of picks with clean pockets this year or something like that. So that's not great. Geno's never been a guy to read a defense and be super accurate at all times. Again, he's volatile with his accuracy, but I'll know. I'll have a much better opinion on that next stream, which I was going to skip this week, but then all this stuff happened. We got 8 new players to the team in 24 hours. I was like, I have to stream this week. I have to stream. Oh, Buffalo Jets fan. What's up, dude? Hopefully I link up with him. We got a bunch of positive reviews when we did a stream together about a month ago now or so. It wasn't even a stream. I think it was just a video. Buffalo Jets fan. Defense could be average post-draft. They didn't do anything that hinders 2027. Fine free agency by me, besides Devin Lloyd getting the Sherwood contract and Folk gone. Yeah. I get wanting maybe a longer term linebacker. You got Devin Lloyd got $14, $15 million, and you got Demario Davis at 11. So I understand maybe wanting a longer term option at linebacker. So if that's a grape, completely understand it. Folk being gone is unfortunate, right? He missed 1 kick last year, super accurate, and he signed for $4 or $5 million with the Falcons. So that's a little bit disappointing to see what they do at kicker, but I think the defensive moves really raised the floor to me. So I like it. Overall, I like it. I really like the Minka trade. I like the versatility on the front seven. I don't think they overpaid anybody. Like you said, with the contracts, nothing is there's no big contracts tied to 2027. Like you said, Anyamata can be gone. Agnek could be gone. Davis could be gone, and you save $7 million. I think Osai would have some money that you can't get rid of. But past that, they're getting rid of a lot of their dead cap space the next few years, and there's nothing that's really tying them down post this year. So I like that point. Still real AD. Salute my Jets fans. What's up, dude? Thank you for the show. Yeah, no problem. Again, I had to jump. Had to jump on. Give me 1 second. Okay. I like this move for Geno. The more I think about it, if he harbors no ill will for how things ended up, he can command an offense. Yeah, he's a bridge, dude. He's not Carson Wentz. He gives you a higher ceiling than that, and I like the money. Sign me up for the money he's making. Billy SBC. I'm thinking 8 wins, high end 10. Jets have a 5.5 win by Vegas. I would say 6.5 is where I'd expect them. Because listen, at the end of the day, if the coaching sucks, the coaching sucks. And if the quarterback sucks, the quarterback sucks. You can't really do much. The schedule now, as of March 10th, looks tough. So I would say 6 wins. It would be, I guess, still. But get Ione at 16. Unless a crazy good player falls. So yeah, I'm not out on guard at 16. Then let's say they don't get a receiver in free agency and they don't get a guard. I think you're kind of forced into the guard. Let's say they sign Elton Jenkins or a capable let's say they sign a capable left guard, because I expect that to happen. If they really like Ione at 16, I'm down to take him. But you're not forced into that pick if you get another interior offensive lineman. But if Vega is a as a player, however they quantify it, let's just do ABC, A, B, C, D, F players. If he's an A and Concepcion's a B, take the better player. Like, I know Concepcion, I know the receiver is a more premium position, but if you like Vega that much more at guard, then I'm okay with taking him. If they don't sign another guy, you're forced into it. But yeah, I'm okay with Vega at 16. I'd prefer a receiver there, but I don't think there's gonna be a receiver at 16 who's better than Vega. Right? Like, I don't, obviously, none of the big three are going to be there. I don't know if I even like Tyson at 16, depending on the medicals. Cooper might be a little bit of a reach there. I still have to watch him. Concepcion, I don't think it's a reach, but maybe a slight reach, where I like Vega much more as a player. So I'll be okay with Vega at 16. But a crazy good player. Like, I don't think they're like I'm not going to let Anianwari, whatever his name is, a 34-year-old, move me off of Peter Woods, because they can play a similar role in this defense. But I think it's a lesser chance than it was a day ago. It's a year contract though, so really not even really, maybe like 5% less chance. But I'm expecting at this current moment interior offensive lineman or receiver at 16. If we can get beat, the thing with Brian Thomas Jr. is, why was he used less? Why are people saying that he's a little bit of a malcontent, not willing to go over the middle and like catch balls in traffic and things like that? So I would like it for 44, but I'd be wary, because if the Jaguars are willing to get rid of him after what he did in his rookie year, that's a red flag, right? Like, there's a reason they're willing to get rid of him. And if he's like lacking focus and, frustrated with his role or whatever it may be on the Jaguars, and they're going to the playoffs, if he comes to the Jets and it's Geno Smith throwing the ball and not, Lawrence, who's obviously a step up from Geno, and they're not making the playoffs, is he going to be a malcontent here? So I'm a little bit worried about, like, why did it fall off so quickly with the Jags? So I'm a little bit more lukewarm on it, but while also admitting I need to have more information to determine why it's not working out in Jacksonville. But with 44 right now, gun in my head, I would do it, but I'm a little bit more cautious than I feel like the general consensus of Jets fans is, or are, with that. I think a combo of Geno Dalton is all right. All right pair of quarterbacks for Simpson or a young quarterback to sit behind. Yeah, I would be okay with. I'd rather Dalton than Wentz, me personally. I would like to see a guy at quarterback 2 who can maybe compete with Geno, and I don't think Dalton or a Wentz could. So if you could bring in Carr for like, what if Carr comes for like $10 million? I'd rather Carr for 10 over Dalton at 5 or something like that. But I'm not going to get too frustrated either way. I'm thinking pick 16 is going to be the offensive side of the ball. Yeah, I think it's going to be interior offensive line or receiver as of right now. I think defense at 16, I think it's a possibility. If you really like the safety from Toledo, is it Warren? I forget. I think it's Warren from Toledo, the safety. Or if you really like Thiemann at 16, again, if Thiemann's an A player for you at 16 and Concepcion's a B, I'm okay with taking the safety. Do you think the Raiders at 14 takes? I know they just signed an interior offensive lineman in my Jets fandom, so I don't think they're locked into it. I'm pretty sure they signed a guy. I know they signed Linderbaum. I think they signed another one. So I don't think they're a lock. It's strong consideration. He should be considered there. He's a good player, and he adds that nasty on the offensive line. If we do think Cardinal Simpson at 3, we take him at 2. Then 16, we get Lemon or trade up. I really do think Reese is a lock at this point. I don't think it's gonna be Simpson, but I could be wrong. But I don't see it. It'll be interesting to see where Ty and Live goes. Will they slide? I don't think Ty slides out of the first round. That's all I'll say. I think like Steelers end of the first, Browns their second or first round pick end of the first. I think one of those guys would grab him. Basically, Moose. I don't get the hate this offseason by some Jets fans. We raise the floor, which helps AG attempt to save his job without jeopardizing the future. Yeah, you bring in some vets. Each level of the ball. D tackle guy, Anyuari, who really loves Glenn and can help spread his message, who has played with him before or played under his tutelage before. You have Demario Davis, leader, respected, rah guy, who's definitely going to help out the mentality of the defense. Glenn Guy intersected with the Saints. Then same thing with the Minka, a little bit different with like Slowik and like that stuff. Like he didn't necessarily cross paths with Glenn, but with the safety coach and the DC he did. He's a communicator. He's a really good locker room guy. So I like they're adding aggressive guys. I like they're adding leaders on each level of the ball, all on short contracts that are going to be, you can get out of them after 1 year. They're only 1 year deals, or it's like a 2 year deal at max. I would say maybe Egnegbarri like a 2 year deal instead of just a 1 year deal. But he's banking on, hey, my trajectory is going up. If I produce and play well with the Jets, I can get, I can bank in a little bit more or cash in a little bit more. That's probably his thinking. So I hate when people say that, like, oh, well, why didn't you just sign to a 2 or 3 year deal? What if he said, I only want a 1 year deal because I want to prove it and make more money? You can't force his hand to sign a 2 year deal. He'd be like, okay, I'm going to go to the Falcons. I want a 1 year deal. Like it's not always, oh, you could have he signed for 1 year, 10 million. We should have signed him for 2 years, 20 million. He would have taken that. It's like, you cannot guarantee that. Or, oh, we should have went after JFM. What if the Jets called JFM and he said, I want $17 million a year or whatever it was, or 20, whatever the hell it was. And the Jets were like, no, we're not willing to pay that. Like, so you can't, I just hate speaking in absolutes. Like, oh, they should have signed this guy to a longer deal. They should have contacted this guy. We don't know. You do not know. Assuming Reese is drafted at 2, how would you grade the Jets' pass rush potential? I do think they're a very good run-stopping unit, and they're going to need to get home with a little bit of, or they have to rely on a little bit of Glenn's creativity in the as a blitz heavy coach. But how would you grade the Jet? Like, you want to label a pass rush potential grade? I think they could be a B unit, if Reese is a solid rookie, if Will McDonald is good, I think they can make a B plus, right? Like Will McDonald can get you 10 plus sacks a year. I think he would have got you 10 or 11 last year on a normal team. I think Reese in his rookie year, will struggle a little bit as a pass rusher because he's still new to the position. But Will McDonald 11, Reese 5 or 6. I think Egnegbarri averages like 5 sacks a year. I think Osai is a guy who's like he can get you like 5 to 10 sacks in the high year, but probably float around 7 or 8 a year. Sweat, not much there. Briggs will get you 5, 6 sacks. So I think it's like a B plus. I would say a B with Reese, because Will McDonald's the only he's like the only proven plus pass rusher on this group right now. Briggs had a good year as a pass rusher, but he's not proven because it's only been 1 year of him being a good pass rusher. Anthony, need a left guard. Yeah, you need a left guard. I would say before the draft to give you flexibility, because if it's not, and it's Myers and a complete question mark at left guard going into the draft, you need to draft one at 16 or 33 or even 44. I can see at 44 being the left guard, but I want to go into the draft with true flexibility. And again, pick 2 is gone to me already. And then you need, if you go to the draft with left guard as a whole and receiver as a whole, I feel like you're forcing 2 out of the top 3 picks you have past Reese there. So get some flexibility, sign a left guard. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through the chat a little bit. I can't stay on for super, super long, so keep throwing some chats in. I've obviously already talked a lot, so I'm answering a lot of questions that have been thrown up. But yes, Matt, I would draft the guard. If they don't sign a guy at left guard, I think you'd run the card up for Vega at 16. If you don't sign a guy. Now, if Jenkins this year gives you that flexibility where Vega's there at 16, okay, Jenkins moves back into center, Vega's your left guard. If Myers is your worst case scenario on the offensive line, if he's your worst starter, okay, I prefer to get another starter to replace Myers. But if it's like Myers and another, lower tier free agent, or they bring in like a 4th round, if they bring in a center at 103, okay, like that's not a bad scenario, even though I prefer them to get 2 starters. Hey, Blue, it does. I don't know what that means. Billy, draft evaluations have just started, and Moore and Ty will no longer be compared to each other. Ty will have a much better NFL career than Moore. That's the thing too with like the next year's draft. Like, are we even guaranteed that the quarterbacks are going to be good? Like, I get it; it's such a better year, but It's like, oh, Sellers wasn't going to be a first round pick this year. I like Simpson more than Moore. What if Moore stays in the same level or regresses next year? Saying I was not super impressed when I watched him at Ohio State. I'm just watching Cardinal Tate. Mensa was, he's thought to be like maybe like a first round, maybe like a fringe first, second round guy in this draft. So what if it's just Arch Manning? Like that's my concern. Because it's the same thing with Klubnik and Nussmeier and all these guys, and they all fell off. Like there's nothing guaranteeing that Sayin or Mensa or Moore are top 10 picks next year. Oh, Elton Jenkins to the Browns? Shit. All right. Harold, what's up? What's up, Joe? I like the defensive upgrades a lot. I think we just need to get a guard and a receiver. And then depth. Yeah. I would say guard, receiver, interior offensive lineman again. I don't want to see Myers as a starter, but again, if he's your worst starter in your offensive line, you have Fashanu, who's I would say average. That's a review I did recently where I was not overly impressed after I really watched him. I think he's an average left tackle at this point, which is okay, but hopefully he improves and he has time and he has time to continue to improve. Again, a capable starter at left guard, whoever that may be. Tippmann as your right guard, who's solid, and Membu, who's very good as a right tackle. If Myers is your worst starter in that group, then it's okay. Again, I hope for a little bit more though. Yeah. I fear Gino's going to get AG fired. Maybe a good thing though. Yeah. Again, volatility. Either he'll be fun and he'll win some games and, wind back the clock a little bit with some nostalgia. There's not a lot of nostalgic moments. Or he blows up and flips Glenn off on the sideline and then he gets released and we win 3 games. Draft Ty Simpson, please, with Brian Thomas Jr. I've heard some reports that the Jets are like really involved in that, but I think something just got shot down, but maybe by Samini saying they're not involved or somebody else. Maybe I think it was Schefter, not Samini. I mean, Gino can't be worse than Fields and Brady Cook. I can't be too mad. Yeah, no, he's not worse than Fields. He's not worse than Cook. Like, I think you're like 2015 Fitz, 2017 McCown. Gino does have some really pretty throws at times, but then he'll just completely whiff on a pass. Jets windows starts in mid in 27 after the first 5-round picks and all the dead cap opens up. Yeah, plenty of cap space opening up. They have a ton of flexibility going forward. That's where I like Bailey, Joe, pass rush. I like Bailey as a pass rusher, but the thing with Bailey too as a pass rusher is there is times where he just beats guys purely with speed. But it's not like he's the most bendy, flexible guy in the world as well. So you're going to have to really rely on him winning with his hands and winning with his speed because he's not a guy who can like really bend and turn and turn the arc very, very well. So, I don't think he's like guaranteed to be some double digit sack guy consistently either. He better cleanly beat guys at the NFL level like he does at college, which I don't think is going to happen as much. And there's some plays where he's beating guys and getting sacks at the collegiate level. Like that would not work on an offensive lineman at the NFL level. And same for Reese and same for Bain. But I don't think Bailey is some locked in studly pass rusher. It's not like I think Will McDonald has a better physical upside than him because while he's not as explosive as Bailey, he's so much more flexible and bendy than Bailey is. And his explosion is still decent, where Bailey has very good get off, specifically secondary acceleration, as I call it. But he's not even near McDonald in terms of the bendiness or flexibility. So I think McDonald has a higher pass rush ceiling than Bailey. It's probably crazy to say because people are seeing like 8 sacks from Will McDonald, but again, average team last year, I think he's had 11. And with the team, if he's on a team who actually is in the game and is up at times, and he obviously hits his ceiling, I think he can get 15, 16 sacks in a season. I do. So yeah, I'll give me McDonald. I'm not saying over Bailey necessarily, but McDonald and then with Reese, because I think if you bring in Bailey, McDonald's gone. I'm not doing it. I'm not gonna say our biggest weaknesses on defense. Linebackers versus play action and safeties versus play action were horrific too. So tackling run stuff is good. But I think you fix some of the miscommunication things on the second, third level, because you have Minka roaming the back, and then you have Demario Davis on that second level as well. So I think some of the communication stuff breaks down in the pass game as well, which is the other huge issue they had. I have like a hair or something right here. It's like making me itchy. I don't mean to like be looking like I'm picking my nose, but I'm not trying to. Pure speculation. Okay, let's see. Trader ABT. Yeah, that hurt a little bit, but he got a lot of money. He got more money than I expected. But now, of course, he's going to go to the Pats and be healthy for the next 4 years or 3 years, whatever, with them. But him getting like, what do you get, like $13-14 million? That's a lot for ABT, considering the injury history. But it's really a testament to how good he could be when healthy. That's what that is. It's a bank on him being healthy. More than air. I'm just trying to. I don't know what I was saying at that point. Nobody. If people run on the Jets, that's the scheme problem, because the Jets have so many good run defenders now. So many. This team with Joe Burrow, divisional round minimum. Yeah, you're talking about what I think should be an average defense, and with Joe Burrow, with this offensive line, with Garrett Wilson, and let's say Tate or Taylor, Brees. Yeah, it's a playoff team. You had a real quarterback and a real coach. It's a playoff team. Tom Brown. Yeah, I see that. I'm late, but I see that now. Okay. Get Dylan Parham from the Raiders. Yeah, like I don't even think they need to add a stud offensive lineman. I think you need to add a capable starter at left guard, so you're not locked into drafting one. Now, if they add like a lower tier left guard, I definitely still, like, let's say it's Parham. I don't know how good he is. I think he's more okay at best. I would definitely want an interior offensive lineman, at least in the top 4 rounds. But I would even lean more towards 33 or 44. I'd select one. Jenkins, yeah. Teller or Christensen at guard. McDonald has so much potential. Spin move. And I know people are they're gonna go crazy for me saying it's a higher pass rush upside, but he does, because he's in terms of the physical characteristics. McDonald has a higher ceiling than Bailey. Again, I think Bailey has near elite get off and secondary acceleration. Like let's say that's a 9 out of 10 for Bailey. I think McDonald's a 7.5 or an 8. But then you go to flexibility and bend. McDonald's a 9 or a 10, and Bailey's a 3. So I do think his ceiling is higher. Okay, let's keep going. That punch incident with Geno was over 10 years ago. Yeah, it's just you're seeing similar things recently, right? With the double birds and stuff. So you're not sure how mature he is. Could you see the Jets just going Tate at 2 to guarantee getting receiver 2? I wouldn't hate that. But I think the pick has to be Reese. I would rather do what you said. Yeah, I'd rather trade up. I think I'm like 95% certain it's going to be Reese at 2. And I would argue in this situation that you could still get receiver 2 at 16, 33, or 44. Now, maybe not with as high of upside as like a Tate or a Lemon at 2. But if you get like Brazel at 33 or 44, or Cooper at 33 or something like that, I think they're still expected to be a receiver 2. It's just the level of the receiver 2 you're talking about. More mid-tier receiver 2 potential type stuff, or high-end receiver 2, receiver 1 type stuff with Lemon and Tate, or maybe even Tyson, depending on if that's your flavor or not. But yeah, I'm pretty damn certain it's going to be Reese, just based on these signings and stuff and what they seem that they're leaning towards in terms of like physicality, versatility. Reese is like he's the cherry on top to that versatility. Okay, I see some Geno arguing here. The Carr thing, he's a good quarterback, but he's terrible in cold weather. And apparently he was shying away from some hits and stuff with the Saints. Now I know he was injured, but yeah, when it's 40 degrees and raining in November in MetLife, you're gonna feel those hits a little bit more, So yeah, like again, Carr for 15, 10, whatever it is, or Geno, it's an argument. It depends on what Carr wants too. Like, what's the contract gonna be? Okay. Lowell at 2. That's hysterical. I don't know what that is in response to. Is it Tate? That's fine. If so, he's my receiver. He's my player 2 in this draft. So I wouldn't take him at 2 because I'm taking Reese. But if you're telling me Bailey or Tate, I'm taking Tate. It's fine. We need to get a free agent Jennings at wide receiver, maybe looking at Kirk and Samuel. I don't think they're going to pay Juwan Jennings $20 million or near $20 million a receiver too. I think you take advantage of the draft, being deep at receiver every year, and you grab one in the first 4 picks. I think that's the only thing that's locked into, okay, at 16, 33, or 44, you need a receiver. I think that's going to be the only thing locked. I do think they sign an interior offensive lineman. Thomas Jr., I hit on that. I would do 44, but I am a little bit more lukewarm because of lack of information. Right? Like, there's a reason they're giving up on him for a second round pick. Like, it's not like, oh, well, it's some steal. Like, there's a reason he only got, if he went from like 1,300 yards to like 800 yards, saw less of a role, is frustrated, whatever it is. Like, there's a reason for it. So what is that reason? The corpse of Demario. The only thing I'll say with Demario Davis is like he was still graded out as a top 10 linebacker last year. So he's old, but he's not a corpse, right? It's not like he's Mosley his last year or two. Like Demario Davis was still a very good linebacker last year. And based on what I've seen through one game, I was like, God damn, like he is still he's strong as an ox and he's really good with recognition. So I'm like I guess I take issue with corpse. Geno Smith, okay, fine. If you want to argue corpse, fine. But Demario Davis, yes, while old, fine, but he was good last year. So if he's a good corpse, who cares? IK was a psycho. Bowers got hurt. Their O-line was 32nd in the league, which means they can't run the ball. So yeah, he had a ton. No, he definitely didn't have a ton to work with. That's what I'm saying. So if you go to what the Raiders were last year, a really bad offense, and I think if the Jets, specifically if you bring an interior offensive lineman and a receiver in the first couple of picks, I think this offense is at the minimum a mid-level offense in terms of the talent around the quarterback position, if not even higher. You could argue higher. So, yeah, he should be better. As the weeks go on, I really like Ty at 2, unless one of the elite prospects are still there. We're talking about 16? Because whatever prospects you want to be there at 2. Let me see if that's what you meant. Jared Less, recognize the name. Just don't know ball if you think the Raiders supporting cast last year is better than the Jets will be. Yeah, I don't know who's saying that, but not me. Okay, this is argument between people. Yes, I know. Mark Garcia, my bad. I didn't see. Okay. Versus Michigan? I don't know who you're talking about. Okay, my bad. Lemon would be a great counter to Garrett. He'd finally be able to free to make some plays if you want to be Garrett's 1A. Yeah, and like even if Garrett is doubled and stuff, you have a guy who can actually win. And I do like Mitchell more than most as a 3. I definitely like him for sure. So yeah, I think the stuff like, oh, you need a big receiver next to Garrett. I think that stuff's overrated with receivers too. Like you need certain prototypes next to each other. Just get me a guy who can win and catch the ball, and Lemon does that, right? Like, yeah, I prefer maybe a bigger guy with a bigger catch radius and stuff, but you have the deep threat. You're your X type of guy in AD Mitchell. You have your slaughter Z and Garrett. And I would argue, or not even argue, I think it's the fact that Lemon could play Z, could play slot. So you have your guy. Again, I prefer Tate just because of the versatility, a little bit more versatility in size, but I think it's a little bit cleaner of a route runner too. But I like Lemon more in terms of his dog mentality and the yak over Tate, but Tate slightly nudges him out as receiver 1A. Arvell Reese at, let me pull this off the screen. Unless you want to see more highlights of anybody. Arvell Reese at 2, CJ Allen at 16. The only thing, I would be okay with CJ Allen at 16. Now, again, transparently, I've watched 5 games, most of these prospects. In those 5 games, I did not see as many limitations in coverage as people talked about. I thought in zone, he was actually pretty well aware of like where he needed to be and getting underneath the routes and stuff. So his zone coverage was actually a plus for me. I think his zone coverage is plus in those 5 games. Man, I understand it because he's not the most dynamic athlete. He's a little bit tight in his lower half and stuff. So I think he could struggle to match guys or keep up with guys after their route breaks and stuff in man coverage if you have like an athletic tight end or a running back. But the zone stuff was good. For me, again, maybe in those other 7 games, he absolutely sucked there. But now with that being said, I think he's worth the 16th overall pick or somewhere near it. With that being said, I don't think you do that with Sherwood. I think you'd have to have a Sherwood trade lined up to draft Allen because you're not going to draft. He's not going to play 3-4 outside linebacker, and he's not going to play 3-4 stand up backer if Sherwood's still here. So CJ Allen, fine, but you have to have a trade lined up with the Titans. Back to his old buddy. Salah if that's the case. But I wouldn't hate CJ Allen at 16 and trading Sherwood. There's definitely other things I prefer, but I think he's near worth that 16th pick. And I think that's more of a testament to this draft class being a little bit weaker than other classes than it is him being really like truly worth that. I feel like in most years, he's a late first, early second who could be elevated because this class is not great from what I've watched. Now, maybe it's not top heavy, but the second to fourth, fifth round are all super deep. Maybe that's the case, but I think there's only probably 11 or 12 guys who are first round picks every year in this draft. Right? Actually, let me see. I can't. I could, but I don't want to. I was going to pull up my notes, but it's not on my computer. I have to do it with my phone. It's going to get a little bit messy. I don't like the Egnagbari signing, but otherwise I like all the signings. Is there a reason specifically for that, Freedom House, though? I need more context of why I don't like it. He's a guy who gets you like 20-something pressures a year, 5 sacks a year, and is a high-level run defender. Hold on. This is where am I at? What's his name? You said Onyemata, or did you say no? Egnagbari. Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you a video of Egnagbari real quick. This is not going to change your mind, and I get it. It's only one play, but like in terms of as a run stopper, can you see my cursor? If not, Sewell right here is the right tackle. Egnagbari or whatever his name is the 3-4 eye right here. Okay, that's to the right side of the screen. So Sewell's the right tackle. Watch him versus Egnagbari. So I'm not like, and I get it at the end of the day, like $10 million does sound like a lot, but it's like the going rate for a low end starter or like a high end backup rotational type player. And I think he's going to rotate with Onyenwari or whatever as your like starting base D end. That's what I think he is. Or he could be a strong side backer in some points as well in like certain run situations, whatever it may be. But I'm not saying I'm one game in. I'm not going to defend him. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I didn't watch through one game like, oh yeah, it's a bad contract. Maybe it's a slight overpay because he's getting like only 5 sacks a year. But I think he's a good run defender, and he offers you some type of pass rush while not being. It's not a super high ceiling there, but solid kicker. Yeah, that'd be nice. I wish they kept Folk. Obviously, we like McNamara as the punter. Let me wrap it. Keep throwing chats in here if you having him do more lightning round style, because I think about 7:30 is the latest I can go. I'm gonna try to bounce off a little bit before that, and then I have to get through. So I'm gonna watch all 80 of these guys full last seasons. So, and if BTJ is traded for, I'm probably gonna watch 25 and 26 or 24 and 25 of him. So we'll see. Brown signed 2 guards. Then yeah, Bitonio, sign me up. Bitonio and then like a 4th round center to compete with Myers. Yep, I'm in. Give yourself that flexibility. I will be excited to watch Garrett work a ton in the slot if we draft sign another outside receiver. The Z is not so different from the slot realistically. Like it's all about not getting pressed and being able to move and stuff and pre-snap motions. And so like slot and Z are not overly different to me. Especially with like all the condensed formations and stuff, like you're not getting as much press coverage in today's NFL as you were in the past, at least, from what I've seen. So, but with that being said, I'm excited for there to be another legitimate receiving threat. ABT will never miss another game now. Yeah, so I think this one's going to drop before the draft, the review I did. But the review I did, specifically the short review, which, by the way, Tank for Ty, did you watch your Ty Simpson review yet? I think you did. But there will be a full review out of McDonald, but the short version is going to be 10, 11, 12 plays of him winning instantly, ball out. So people are like, oh, he didn't get sacks, he didn't get pressures, he didn't get hits. I showed you, in that review, I showed probably 10, 11 examples of him winning, three-step drop, ball out, or him forcing a hold where people aren't going to be like, oh, well, yeah, he only got 8 sacks, but he forced 6 holds. So I put that up there as well. So I think McDonald is better than people think he is. And I think if you have him on the team versus Bailey the next 2-3 years, I think they're offering you a similar player in terms of a guy who's going to get you anywhere from 8 to 15 sacks maybe. And Bailey might be a little bit better in the run, but it's just not worth it for me. How would you feel if it was Reese and Simpson in round 1? Reese is chalk right now, and Simpson would be exciting. I'd be a little bit nervous about it because I've been labeled as a Simpson defender, even though I'm just like a Simpson. I guess I am a defender. I think I've been labeled as a Simpson stan, where I think I've been a Simpson defender, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not standing him. I don't think he's the best quarterback of all time, but he's unfairly criticized, no doubt. At 16, the thing is, like, if he hits, massive win for me and my like profile, right? Because I've been defending him. If he misses, then I'm gonna be labeled as a guy who thought he was generational, even though I've never said that. I just think he's unfairly criticized. So it'd be exciting, and I'd hope for one, because I'm a Jets fan, I want a quarterback of the future, but 2, for the brand, that'd be huge. That'd be huge. Thoughts on Sony over Reese? Sony is like my 4th rated player. Reese is my 1, so I wouldn't like it. And again, with that, you'd have to get rid of Sherwood. Which, again, I'm not letting Sherwood prohibit me from drafting Styles, but you have to get rid of Sherwood at that point, because Sony is a stand-up backer and Reese is a hand-in-the-dirt backer. You're talking about Badgent or Bagent, whatever, clip shooter, 4K? Yeah, I can't really speak to him. I don't think he's really done much when he came in, but I don't know. Joe Pekulik, hey, Joe B, I'm a little bit concerned with not getting a guard here so far. Which guards out there would make an impact? Yeah, we just talked about it. Joel Bitonio is out there. Zeitler's out there. I'm not sure how we did last year. Wyatt Teller is out there. So there's some guys out there. It's only we're 21 hours deep right now. So Hall gone, drafting Love. It can be done. I'm not sure what's going on here. Move up for Delaney, 2 rookie. Okay. I don't think they're drafting Love because of Hall. K2 feels like the season and Glenn's job will be decided by the Engstrand swap works out. I think it's regardless of what it is. But yes, it's obviously a big part of it because your OC and quarterback is a huge part of your success. I think they probably have to get at least 7 wins for him to stick around. I think 6 or less, he's fired. I think there's a situation where if he has 6 wins, but like most of the losses are close games, then he has a chance to stay. But I think he has to get 7 wins minimum. Who's playing D tackle on 3rd and 10? We don't have much interior pass rush, underrated need. You're talking about like 3rd and 10, like who's going to play nose tackle, 1 tech? It's Briggs, and Briggs was a good rusher last year. So, yeah, it's Briggs, and then your 2 DNs or D tackles in that situation would be the Osai. You probably have Briggs at 1 tech 0, Osai as a DN D tackle, and then the other one would probably be Agnegbari, and then Reese and McDonald on the outside. So yeah, maybe like another like D end pass rushing guy, but I don't think it's gonna happen. They're like 8 or 9 guys deep. But Briggs would be like your D tackle rusher there. And again, definitely Osai. And then the other D end it could be Agnegbari. It could be the dude from the Falcons, who I'm blanking on his name right now. There's so many names going. Omnawari. So many weird names like Agnegbari, Omnawari. Just can't. Sorry, my last comment about Ty at 2 was meant to say 16. Reese at 2, Ty at 16. Yeah, I'll take it. Agnegbari pass rush was pretty bad. I think again, I gotta watch more of him, but he seems to get like 20-ish pressures and 5 sacks the last 2 years. So it's like it's not a good pass rusher. It's like a below average pass rusher, but he's not a 0, right? He's not Clemens, so he's gonna give you good run defense and be a below average but at least capable pass rusher for 10 million. I think that's a solid price, especially when his stock is going up. Ty equals Joe B. Cool those Jets a bit. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, you're talking about Joe Burrow from the comment before. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not sure what you mean there. Jets control this draft. Would you have Ty grade as a 2nd round quarterback in a normal draft? No, I think he's a late first. I think he's a mid-late first in most drafts. I do. Maybe next week I can go I could go through and like say, okay, this is the quarterback I would take before or after Ty, like I did with Mendoza last week. But yeah, I think he's a mid to late first round quarterback. I think it's not the film to me. It's the size, it's the injury, it's the lack of starts that's dropping him. If Simpson played last year as well and he's playing with 30 starts instead of 15, I think he's a surefire lock as a top 10 pick. So it's not the film that's moving me off or would sway me. It's I understand the age thing, I understand the size thing, I understand the lack of starts thing. I do. But I think that's the only reason. It's not like, oh my God, he was so bad at the end of the year. I don't agree with that. That's fair. I take him over Clemens for Freedom House, for Egningbar. Yeah, again, maybe a little bit over an overpay, but if he's a very plus run stuffer, like that's kind of what JJ was, right? Like Egningbar is kind of similar to JJ in terms of like, and JJ is a little bit more. JJ, let me rephrase that. JJ is more athletic than Egningbar. Egningbar has a much better base and like ability to stand up and anchor versus like combos and down blocks of tackles and things like that. So I think Egningbar is going to give you a better run stuffer than JJ, maybe a little bit less of a pass rush like win rate and stuff than JJ. But JJ had like 3-4 sacks last year, and his ceiling of his sacks was 7. So if Egningbar is a better run defender but gets you 2 less sacks than JJ, and they're more both of them went through like effort and stuff, then fine. Like I think he's a JJ level player and he's gonna be a backup now. And I think that Osai is like JJ plus different, but I think he's a better player. Like 1-for-1 right now for this season. I think he's probably better. So I think Egningbar is really good depth. Or again, a guy who could play in some certain rush situations or run situations. If someone you don't expect is there at 16 slips, say Tate, would you trade out of 16 for another 2027 first or stick and pick? Depends on how late that first is, but I think you probably have to take the first in 2027 considering how strong it is. But Tate falls to 16, I'd have a very tough time moving off of that pick. Very tough time. So it depends. What does Marcus Coleman think about the state of the Jets? I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a little bit. I actually got to link up with him soon. Do you think the Jets, if the Jets pass on Simpson at 2, he'll last until 16? Gun to my head right now, he's probably there at 16, and the Jets have to make the decision. I think he'll go Browns late first or Steelers late first. Gun to my head right now. I was surprised to see Simpson. Yeah, he's 6'1", 6'2". I think he's 6'1", though. I don't think he's 6'2". I think he's like high 6'1". Jared, I think saying Simpson is a mid first round quarterback in a normal draft will get you labeled as a Simpson truther, unfortunately. Seems like the most draft people. Yeah, but which draft people? It all depends on who you're talking to. Maybe I am okay. So maybe I am a truther, but I don't think I'm to the point of like, hey, Simpson is some star prospect, I guess. I don't know. Nonetheless, before I get yelled at, not even yelled at, it's just literally I was walking around with my computer in my hand like this, like trying to hold a baby and type on my computer and watch film. And then now I'm going to go upstairs, put my kid to bed, and then watch film from probably about 8 to 2 o'clock in the morning. So my wife's going to annoy at that too. So I'm going to try to save myself some heartache and get off 2 minutes early. But I'll be back. Okay. My only thing with this is you also had I think Ben Solak is better than he was with this one tweet, but I saw Ben Solak put up a tweet of Caleb Downs recognition, and he was just in man coverage on a running back. So he was going to go with a running back regardless. And he like toted it as some great play. So it depends on who you're listening to. And I'm just shitting on Ben Solak, who I think is better than the play he put up, but I don't want to be like this guy. Be careful who you listen to, because there's a lot of people with platforms right now who I think are pushing themselves out to like be more knowing of film than they actually are. So just be careful. That's all I'll say. Nonetheless, I appreciate you guys. I will talk to you next time.